That's just water too.
You guys are on mute at the office now.
Mr. Chair. Okay, we'll call a meeting, our Regional Infrastructure Committee meeting to order for June 24th. Kate, Director Rogers is not going to be able to join us, I guess, today. She's on holidays. I think most of you got that message. I'd like to comment on the new building here, just for an opening remark. I think it's the first committee meeting here. Yeah, in the building, so we're blessed to be the first committee meeting, and it's a nice facility here for those of you that are not here. So anyway, it's an awesome place here. Could I have a motion for approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Moved by Director Jackson and seconded by Director Sharp. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unreminded of any, motion carried. Do we have any conflicts of interest to disclose today with what's on the agenda? Anyone? Hearing none, we're good. So we'll move into the 2024-2025 Regional Infrastructure Annual Reporting. We'll call on our CEO for that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In your package, through you, Mr. Chair, to the directors, there was a letter. The reason that we have to do this annual report was originally in the Regional Service Delivery Act. There was a requirement for the for annual reporting to the minister on or before June 30th each year. This particular so then we placed that when we did our terms of reference for the committees, we placed that in our bylaw. And when the act changed, and I apologize through you, Mr. Chair, to you and the committee, when the act changed, we did not change the bylaw. It's no longer required under the act, but it is required in our bylaw. So Kelly's hauled up the bylaw there now, our P11 bylaw under section 392, and you'll see the highlighted section. I won't read it to you, but we have to recommend a report to the board to the minister for June 30th, which will identify, and it talks about different things that we have looked at. The one question that came in about it was, what particular meeting did you talk about all of these things? Our conversation is an ongoing conversation. We would have known if things had come up, you know, in terms of all the list of the infrastructure that has been identified that the committee considers regional in nature. Well, we didn't have any detailed explanation of the reasons for the committee's decision to include the infrastructure. Well, we didn't have any, so we didn't discuss how we included it. Any infrastructure that all or some of the members should contribute to, along with the proposed budget. Well, we spent the last while talking about trails. We're getting probably to a point like that in the fall. If we go forward with a potential on trail connectivity, that might have a sub-regional project, or we might have something that could be even bilateral that we could help to facilitate. Might even find through our study that we're doing now some future regional connectivity that could really work to serve as our first regional infrastructure project. But that's a ways off. And then a statement of all rationale for any of the infrastructure excluded from the list, which identifies description of consultation on the matter. Well, we did that internally. The views of each of its members with respect to the matter and the data decisions to exclude the infrastructure that was based. So we penned a letter to the minister that was included in your package that accomplishes all of this in terms of looking at what we've done in terms of over the past year, looking at the several issues related to infrastructure in Capital Region. The map of the sport recreational infrastructure is now posted on our internet site. In terms of that, the map provides local users with information to assist in the identification of assets for economic development, promotion, tourism purposes. At this time, none of the infrastructure in the region has been identified by the committee as regional, and we put in the list of the link to the map. And then we go into the currently what we're working on, which is really the trail connectivity and the Blue Trail potential connectivity. These are all potentials that we've been working on. And we talked about it being, with the goal of potentially having a visioning session to be held with the communities and stakeholders. And, it's a large and complex file, considering active motorized biking and other uses. And we've engaged a local firm to assist with guiding discussions. In terms of that and the departments that we've been working with. And so it's really at this point, it's an information piece to the minister pursuant to our bylaws. So I don't know, Mr. Chair, if there's any questions, but that would be the suggestion.
Okay, do we have any questions for John on this letter that's going to the minister?
Grant has his hand up.
Yes, Greg.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I've got one, questioning the sentence that says that, the committee has, I'm just looking for it here. It says at this time, none of the infrastructure in the region has been identified by the committee as regional in nature. And I guess I'm questioning whether is indeed the case. My understanding was that the committee had made a recommendation to the board that the aquatic center was regional in nature. And the board decided it wasn't. And if
Yes.
that's the case, I'd like to see that wording changed to say that the board has decided against it, because the committee, as a committee, it would be hard for us to say it wasn't regional in nature purely by definition alone.
Now, in all respect, we can't determine an outcome from the committee level. Everything has to be decided by the board. We can send a recommendation or we can send what we think, but the board has the final decision on that.
That's right. So that's why we should not be saying the committee has determined. It was the board that determined, or the board's decision was that it wasn't regional in nature. The committee didn't say that, in my recollection.
You recollect that?
Yeah, I think so, through you, Mr. Chair, if I could. Grant, maybe just a small structural change to it, that at this time, none of the infrastructure in the region has been identified by the board as regional in nature.
Yeah.
I mean, they are our governing body, right? We have to
That
report to them.
statement would be correct.
Yeah, okay.
That statement is correct. I agree with John, but but the way it's worded now, I would argue that it's not correct.
Well, now it's time to change it if we don't like it. So, Mr. Chair,
We're
thank
good.
you, and Mr. Jackson, thank you.
We're
Thank
good
you.
with that change? And the change is noted.
Change is noted, it'll be made as presented to the board on the 26th.
Okay, any other questions on this letter for the minister? Okay, hearing none, we're good. So we'll move on to the trail connectivity. Don't know if Amanda wants to go first on the Blue Trail or John. You can go.
Sure, yeah, under me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So not a lot has happened since the last meeting. I gave a more thorough update at the last meeting. This one won't be that detailed, but we did meet with the company that was selected for the project, which is Explore Everywhere Media. We met with James Donald at Planet Hatch, as well as Andrew, Reza, and Andrea from Ignite. We met with them on June 11th to discuss the details of the statement of work, as well as the contract. We made sure to hone in the scope and make sure it's reflective of what we want, reflective that there's no duplication happening. I'll just note that Fredericton Capital Region Tourism is working on the Willistic Watershed Paddling Initiative. So we're working in alignment with them on this. So we kind of changed the statement of work to make sure that was all aligned. So we had a great conversation. The James Donald is now working on the statement of work. He's going to send it in to Ignite. Then it will be submitted to us for final review and signing the contract. And at that point, we can share it with this committee so everyone can have a look at it. We will end up with a map that includes access points. mapping some of the routes. Again, like I said, Capital Region Tourism is working on paddling routes as well, so we'll work with them on that. But you know, our main thing is we want to know where all the access points are, and we want our population in the region to know where they can put in. This will also include a feasibility analysis of where would good places be to put in new access points. Business feasibility, where would be a good place to put a new business in. Yeah, so it should be pretty thorough. We're excited about it. Once the project begins, as soon as we sign the contract, there'll be monthly check-ins, and I can just continue giving updates. Whenever this committee deems it necessary, we can bring James Donald in as well to discuss his work on the project. I understand maybe we won't be meeting again until the fall possibly. We can talk about that, but anyway, he will come in and speak whenever we would like him to. Other than that, I can continue giving updates. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for that.
Okay, thanks, Amanda.
Mhm.
Do we have questions for Amanda?
Oh,
Yes, Director Sharp?
you're on mute. Sure.
We're still on mute.
Here, okay,
Anyway.
I found it. Just a question, so are we talking strictly the Blue Trail, or are we talking all the trails that we spoke about last month?
Sorry, so this is strictly for Blue Trails. This is the merge project that we're working on with Planet Hatch Ignite. So this is strictly Blue Trails. We're working with Gemtech to develop the other trails, and John will go into that in a
Okay.
little bit now.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Director Sharp, or through you, Mr. Chair, Director Sharp. Director Sharp, this is, we believe this will be the beginning of a foundational piece to help with what you had mentioned a few times about how do we identify what could be that business that could be developed, or what could take advantage of the waterways, the trail connectivity. So this is going to be that, we believe this will be that foundational piece to that, and that will happen throughout the region. So we'll do that, and as Amanda said, in cooperation with the Fredericton Capital Region Tourism and their work. But we're also aware of what other communities are doing, where there are fuel stations, where there are other vantage points. And we're hoping that we'll be able to identify, as Amanda said, in the inputs, where people can put in, are there opportunities for communities to take advantage of that, whether maybe being by, I'll use Grand Lake as the most recent example, when they bought Princess Park. Gaining that access and having a community asset for the public to enjoy, and how can they put in? So there's going to be opportunities there as we go through this process to hopefully help communities be able to develop and identify those areas.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I have one maybe. You talk feasibility points, like for maybe businesses that wanted to get established.
Mhm.
The Zoom meeting yesterday, economic development, Black Arcs. Is there a possibility for that program to identify some of these feasibility points? I don't fully understand their whole program. It sounds very complicated and high tech, but is that a possibility to help with this?
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, I'll jump, or if you want to take that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I've definitely, that was the first we heard from Black Arcs yesterday, but you know, that's what I was thinking during that meeting, is there's so many applications of this. You know, how do we want to use it, and do we want to use it? But definitely, I think, you know, what, obviously, we're gonna continue with this project, and this could bring benefit to a future project would be, this would be mapping all the input points. Give us some baseline information, and then sure, I don't see why we couldn't explore that in the future.
But they
That's
can,
why we brought them in, you know,
they can determine like where the best points would be if you're going to expand. Or they can advise, I guess, is a better word, where the best points would be. Like
Yeah.
if you're
I can
expanding.
probably speak to that a little bit because I've dealt with them in the past. I mean, I would say it depends. And the reason I say it depends is that you would want to make sure that you scope what you're looking for. Could they do something? They could. What their program's best suited for is to determine if you thought you wanted to put something on point A, they can suggest, okay, if 500 people want to visit point A, what does that mean to your community in terms of people getting to and from that location, so that you don't cause what I'll call a butterfly effect, in the sense that it seems innocuous originally until 500 people go there and travel that route. And now all of a sudden you have perhaps congestion of some kind. And that's really what their software was developed initially, to try to forecast or provide a map to say, if 500 people drove to that site and parked their cars and then left, what does that mean to your community? So yes, they can certainly provide you some direction in that. But you'll want to know, like, will they be able to provide you what that's like for paddling? Yes, again, they could do that, but you're probably going to have to feed them, like, let's assume 100 paddlers or whatever, because they probably don't have any data to suggest that right away, because that's kind of brand new. But
Okay.
so can they certainly can. It just depends on, on the ask.
And Mr. Chair, just for the benefit of the folks online that may or may not have participated, to the other members of the community, Black Arcs is a digital twinning solution for communities. They basically take a map of your community, and then they set another one over, or they can set another community of similar size to it. And what they do is, if you're thinking about future development, if I gotta hold it in place there. If my water jug was a hospital, they can say, okay, well, we're gonna put this up in a new area that's scheduled for development. If you're getting a new hospital, what would that traffic pattern be? What would that look like? So they can give you modeling that would show you, to Member Jackson's point about how do you model the traffic pattern to it? What could that look like, to the congestion, to what it could mean? Does it mean it every day? Probably not, but it could mean it every weekend, or it could mean it through the summer months, that type of a thing. So there was a lot of interest in the Black Arcs presentation yesterday from different communities, and we'll have more to that coming out of the Economic Expansion Committee to the members probably in early fall. They wanted to explore some possible funding opportunities there as well. So.
Any other questions for Amanda on the Blue Trails? If not, we'll move on to John on the regular trails.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. Jihad and his team shared all their mapping information with our GIS person here in the office. They're currently looking at the GIS mapability, looking at what are those low-hanging fruit options, which we were talking about. One of the things that struck me when they were showing that was in the communities, oftentimes, whether you're coming out of the city or whether you're coming from one community to another, is what they really didn't find a lot of, and maybe Member Jackson or one of the members here, Mr. Chair, that are more familiar with the trails of the region than I am, we didn't find a lot of signage. That was one of the things that stuck out to me, like, that you're now entering into a different type of trail. There were some that led up one to another. And then when you got there, were you still on a trail that was for that use, or was there a trail for another use? So one of the things that caught me right out of the gate was the signage. But over the summer, this work will continue, looking at all the communities in the region, working with Oromocto, Fredericton, and anyone else that's engaged in trail mapping and development right at the moment. And we'll have a full report back to this committee in the fall, because it's taking some time. The data, while some is readily available, some of it is stuff that you really have to delve down on and ensure that we've got the right trails. When we start looking at the Snowmobile Federation, the Quad group, all of these other stakeholder groups, oftentimes the maps look like they're the same on a topographical map. You start to interlayer them, and then all of a sudden you realize, are we still on the same trail, or is there 4 trails of similar nature in one area? So we've been doing some drone footage, some satellite footage, maps that we know that the communities that are more advanced have developed. So we're really trying to delve into it to get a better product for the committee to make decisions moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we had asked for the CIS mapping, right?
Yeah.
And that was, the deadline for that is like the end of the summer, isn't it?
Mhm.
The determination on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
So we've, and they are working very good together, very closely. I know that, Jenny, and, Johnny here in the office have been in touch with, Jihad and his team. And, we're getting the maps and the ones from the municipal structures that are, entities that are more advanced, and well, they're quite well mapped. So it's an easy link to, John and his team, so to speak, in Oromocto. So it's, those are the cherry pickings, all the rest of us that, where you got a group of trails. I live in the rural community of Hamwell, and you got a group of trails out there, but are they linked to anywhere? But are there some old logging roads, or is there a piece of an old rail bed? Is there somewhere that, where the locals know, but some of them don't? And the great thing about, one of our staff members, Jonathan Dixon, Jonathan works in that area as well. He's often, and many of you know Jonathan, and he does community development work as well. But he's an avid trail person. He's a snowmobiler, he's a 4-wheeler, he's out on the trails, and some of the trails for things like even the UNB woodlot. He assisted in the original development of the trails from the old woods roads that they used through their silviculture areas and things like that. So having somebody with local knowledge that uses the trails has been absolutely invaluable on the project. So
Yeah, the only reason I bring that comment up, I guess, we had asked to have that for the next meeting. But we were told that it wouldn't be possible for the time frame. So I just wanted to address the time frame will be the end of the summer.
yes, sir.
So, okay, any questions for John? Hearing none, we're okay. So. Thank you, John. Budget discussion?
Okay, I don't mean to be boring you here with my, soft dull stones like the Mel Torme that I am. Last year in the budget, for budget 24, or for budget 25, we had set aside $60,000, a total of 60,000 for the work of the committee. So far this year, we're doing very well in our budget. We'd be probably somewhere, I believe, around I didn't have a chance to check with Mary Kay before she left, but I believe we're somewhere around the 25 to 30,000 mark total, and that will see part of this project concluded through there as well. And then if we get into the fall and we want to do more work and we have visioning sessions and things like that, well, when you do public consultation, there is a price to that. They're not heavily lifts, but we do have to, you'd want to do those over a series of events and not try to do it in a one and done. Those usually get us a little bit in trouble. Within that, I guess for the committee to consider to advance to the CFO at this point, I would suggest, as I did yesterday, an economic expansion, that we hold the line and that we put in for the same budget amount for next year. So that if we do have projects that we have it, if there's anything left over, that does get carried over either to reserve or into a second year previous surplus for future years. So we're not losing any money. We don't want to increase, my suggestion, Mr. Chair, is not looking to increase the budget, but to maintain the budget so that we can, so that we would have some seed funding to be able to roll that through again for next year.
Okay, thank you. I understand that the CFO would like to have reserves for all of these lines,
Yes.
so what we don't use in 2025 will go into reserve or infrastructure.
My understanding is we could potentially place it that way, and that would be our infrastructure, our reserve fund for down the road. In terms of that, yes.
Okay,
So
maybe that's the cart ahead of the horse, is it?
it is a little bit ahead of the horse because she hasn't really, we haven't fully developed the budget yet, but still at the same time, I think, I mean, that would be a pragmatic way to utilize the funding if I believe we're able to do that, Mr. Chair, but I'll have to check. I rely on Mary Kay to give me those absolute answers. So
Okay.
I can get back to the committee.
Any input on the budget discussion or comments from anyone?
I think just from my perspective, I can live with sticking to it, but I would like to prefer to know what we think we want to do and then try to tailor to that, because as most folks know, next year is going to be hard. Assessment freezes are great for the individual homeowner, but they're a horrendous business plan for the municipalities. And while in the big picture, 60,000 is not a lot, but if this committee's committed to doing a certain study and we know it's only going to be 45, I would rather say 45. I know for this next year, it's like every dime you can potentially save is probably well worth it. If I didn't have an assessment freeze looming and everybody wanting more, it'd be different, but just something to consider. I don't know if our group's ready yet to be able to say next year our priority is X and how much does X cost, but just throwing 60,000 in a pot in this environment is usually not the way I would prefer to do it, but I can certainly concede if that's the will of the whole.
What's everyone's thought on that?
I agree on the dollar and cents fact that we're where we're going and where we're not going, but to have 60,000, if we're not gonna spend it, there's no sense keep having it there. I mean.
What are we gonna end up spending for 2025? Do you have a fair handle on it or?
If this committee decides in the fall that it would like to continue to advance the project to get to a visioning session and work towards that towards the end of the year, we will likely maximize the 60,000. We will likely spend the 60,000 for the year. And then if we continue that into 2026, the challenge is until we hold that visioning session is how do we do it? So here's what's happening. We've got the budget train going in one direction and our desire to plan in the other direction because we won't know. So that's why I suggested that we hold the line on for the year within that, because if we do find the low hanging fruit options, I'll use that for lack of a better analogy, and we're able to do some of those connectivity pieces, and we need to get down into the weeds of helping the communities that want to participate in that to look at that. Whether I understand, John, that you're working with the city of Fredericton on the connectivity piece. So, we get into these ones that are sporadic all over the region, but benefit the region as a whole. What would happen is we can then assess what is needed in there for some of the communities, might be able to help in another way with John and his partnership. So it's really to benefit the region, but it will be for the will of the committee, because right now it seems that this topic is generating a lot of a lot of conversation among board members and among members of the public. Often hear about this is great work. We'd like, especially around, we see the success of the Blue Trail paddling network is developed by Fredericton Capital Region Tourism. We see communities such as, I'll go back to Grand Lake, purchasing Princess Park that came out of, Director Nicklin talked about the necessity of having presentations and working together collaboratively, even to understand, even though they did that unilaterally as a local project. But you look at, I'll say Director Sharp's area, you know, when you look going out into Gagetown and really that opportunity to utilize the waterways there and in everybody's community, we're all attached in some way. We all have, pretty much every area has an attraction to water. Every area has an attraction to trails. And so how we do that and how we mix that together will happen. The challenge is for us as a committee, or for this committee, Mr. Chair, is really truly looking at what do you put aside for that next phase of what would come out of the visioning session and some direction in the fall from the board into 2026. Look, if the committee so wishes to reduce the budget to an amount, then we'll certainly bring that forward to the CFO. I just caution the committee that if we're doing the things that we're doing this year and we know what our budget is, and we're on, you know, and we do these things that look like they will happen, I'll say that, for not that they will, but look like they will for the fall, we're probably going to come pretty close to our mark at the end of the year. However, any funding that we don't use would go into a reserve or a second year previous surplus. So it's not a loss, and I'm not trying to judge. I'm trying to be good to communities, considering last year there was an overall reduction in member community share that was quite dramatic for each community in year over year at the end of the year, because of Mary, in all fairness to our CFO, her ability to maximize the usage of the RSSF, our ability to get other funding through RDC and other government entities. We've been able to keep our budget very modest. And anyway, in my opinion, I think it's a modest budget. But the will of the committee is the will of the committee to make that recommendation as we move forward.
It probably will get more expensive before it gets less.
Yes.
Is kind of my thought on it. Especially if, you know, we've talked about this connectivity and we've done some engineering data on it, but if we start moving into the physical part of the connectivity, it's going to cost more than what we have already spent. So I know it's, when you budget, it's kind of a, you know, broad in the dark, but I do agree, we probably should maintain what we had a year ago rather than to decrease it. And just my thought, and I have to go through the same thing with our municipality, like it's, because we're in the assessment freeze also, and same as yours, John.
No, everybody's gonna deal
Yeah.
with it, trust me,
Yeah.
and it's all relative, right, in terms of the numbers, so. And it's really just more about making sure, like, you know, that whatever it is we do next is like, if it's facilitating conversation, to your point, John, I don't think that costs money. I can pick up the phone and call you and facilitate a conversation, and we don't need to spend money. It's just your time, my time, until we can. And if there's conversations that should happen bilaterally, at least initially, that's great. I don't see that as something this committee needs to spend money on. Once you develop a bilateral project and you have it costed, now you have to build it into your budget. Again, I don't see where this committee has a function in that per se, or needs to spend money on. And it only becomes a situation of, you know, okay, if this committee needs to flush out a better strategic plan or something like that, that's fine. If that's where we want to locate or spend that money, I just want to make sure that if that's what we need to do next year, let's just say so, and that's what it's going to cost. But I don't know. I really don't know yet. And you might say, yeah, look, we're going to complete the strategic plan for trails, whatever, if there's, and then people can then have bilateral conversations as a basis and develop a capital project for future years between the two communities. Because, for me, it's about, look, I can tell you that the city of Fredericton and New Maryland will talk because they want to connect a trail. That's great. I think that's great. Does that involve Oromocto? No. Should it involve Oromocto? No, at least not initially. And once there's a network connected together and it all connects us together, and then we want to talk about operating, maintaining that network. Now, is there a regional conversation? Absolutely. But the connectivity piece most times is going to start with a bilateral conversation, and then it can expand out depending on the complexity of the project, and I'm that's where we're all here to support that. So it's just trying to get a sense. And so if the committee here senses that we need $60,000 yet again next year to continue to flush out strategically what that looks like, okay. I'm just begging the question, because that's what I do to my whole staff when we go through budgets, right? So
Okay, yes.
Mr. Chair, through you, I agree with what Member Jackson's saying 100%. The reality is on this is the work that we're doing now is that framework to the next steps. And that's how I see it in terms of that. So I just wanted to make that. I agree. I think you're absolutely right on, John, in terms of that. Or remember, but the reality is that the frame that we're putting together now, then how do we put it together? And in my, this is just purely my opinion, this may be the first one that leads us to something that is regional in nature. I really believe that this could be the regional project, whether that's Director Sharp and Director Forsyth connecting connecting in some way, whether it be through trail or waterway or whatever. I mean, in all fairness, Director Sharp or Director Forsyth, he covers a lot of territory in this region. In terms of that, it's a big footprint, just because of the dispersity of it. But to that, we have Grant is our subject matter expert, Member Sinclair, and I think when we're looking to his earlier point, what could be that first regional project? I honestly believe that this could be that one that sews us together and brings the region together, where we're supporting one another, we're helping with the bilateral conversations, or supporting, because it's going to be that work that we do that says, hey, by the way, Director Duplessis, and whether it be Director Sweeney, or maybe it's Director Rogers, or maybe it's Director Rogers and Director Powell, we've come up, here's some things that we found in our mapping, here's some linkages between the three. Then you got a sub-regional as opposed to a regional. But if we tie that in with potential other sub-regional or bilateral projects, this could be that first. I'm really excited about this trail development, but I think this really could be the first regional process that we embark upon.
I do agree. I'm going to get a little direct here and I'll go around. Yes, Director Sharp.
I can't figure out how to raise my little yellow hand here. So anyway, I'll just put mine up. But
Yeah, we saw it.
well, I'm just wondering, like, when we talk regional trails, the chances of having a regional trail all at once is slim. So I can give you an example. We're trying to put a bylaw in place there now to get the ATVs into Gagetown. And the ATV Federation was down to give a presentation on what they're doing, and they're spending $1 million to put a bridge in so we can connect with Grand Bay Westfield and on up through to Director Forsyth's area. So that stuff is happening, and that stuff will continue to happen with or without us. But I think that the trails are going to be built, the connectivity is going to be built over time. And I'm not sure we should be selling ourselves short and cutting the budget right now. That's my point.
Okay, that was gonna be my direct question. You recommend leaving the budget as our CEO recommended?
I would say based on where we're going right now, yes.
Okay. Marty, what's your recommendation?
I say the same for now.
Okay. Grant?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I do think we want to be careful, like, to me, there's a difference between a regional trail and connecting existing municipal trails or local jurisdictional trails. And I think, like, to me, my understanding is that's what we're trying to facilitate. But we're doing that. Like, the danger of just letting the two bilateral or two adjacent communities do it by themselves, it's hard. It doesn't really lend itself well to sort of having that regional overview. So at the end of the day, the hope, my vision is, the hope would be that we've made enough connections that sort of facilitates that travel amongst our region. And I think there are a lot of just no-brainers, like people have already said, that there was either existing connections or not. But I would hope this committee could sort of maybe help through this mapping project, sort of keep that broader vision alive, whereby it's probably more conducive to make a connection over here than over here, because it does allow us to sort of look at that regional travel piece. So anyways, but I agree, probably for the current time, we should budget as we have been doing.
Okay.
Favor.
So the recommendation of the committee is, I believe the consensus is to stay with what we had budgeted last year's. I'll just throw this out there. We got kind of a north and a south side in this trail connectivity. We have the massive St. John River that causes these connectivity issues. I know in Central York, we're well connected with Nashwauk, we're well connected with Nakawick, Millville. But we can't connect to Hanwell, Harvey, and the south side of the river. Because there's a non-motorized bylaw, I think, on all trails in the city, from what I can gather from the city staff and their council. So that takes any motorized vehicles from trying to connect. In Fredericton is kind of our center of the nucleus of the capital service region. So when we take that out, we have to go one way or the other to try to connect. And I would think it would be great if Central York somehow could connect to Hanwell. Yes, I don't know what it would take, if it would take a ferry or a bridge, but it's something that we can't do ourselves and Hanwell can't do ourselves. It would take a great deal of help, and that would connect the whole northern part, north and south, if we could do something like that. And yes, to get to the southern part of Arcadia, Grand Lake, Oromocto, Sunbury, York South, there probably could be another connection somewhere down there. How or what, I have no idea. But I think that's what I kind of agree with Grant. We got to look at these connectivity issues and not just major pieces of trail. In my opinion, we got to get these connected on these portions that are very difficult to connect, especially in each municipality alone. I don't know if I jumble that up or if it's, anyway, that's my thought on it, so.
To me, it makes sense, and I certainly understand it, and I think that's where trails are extremely complex too, because the sleight of hand there is then talking about shared trails or having duplicate trails, which again, I mean, let's face it, folks, this oil all boils down to money. You want to cross the St. John River, you're talking millions of dollars. You know, which then everybody has to support in a way that they can. But then there's priorities that people have, and so it'll be a discussion that'll keep unfolding. I would say we're certainly open to continue to have those discussions because it's important. It's just trying to figure out a way to get those things done. And I mean, by done, I mean the actual, you know, capital part of it, which is the construction, which, yeah, none of it's cheap. And if you have communities that are hell bent on saving the tax rate, then you can't suck and blow people. That's the hard and fast of it. So, it's one of those things where I think this group, all we can do is try to facilitate the discussions and keep them moving and talk about, is this a shared trail system? Do we have to, or to your point, maybe you can build a motorized trail system that connects those communities, because there's
In the winter, it's not an issue.
right. Yeah, well, yeah.
It's the powered ATVs through the summer seasons.
100%. I mean, we all run into it. I mean, Oromocto's no different. There is a section of trail for motorized vehicles, which is completely separate from the pedestrian trail. And so it's just trying to make sure everybody knows where all those things are and how they can connect together. So, you know, look forward to continuing to have those conversations.
Yeah, and I think the key is we got to make the simple connections, because the simple connections are going to get more people using trails. And the more people using trails, it allows us to have those harder discussions whereby, you know, there's more of a financial demand. But if you have the people using them and have bought into the system, you know, I think then we can go there. But if we start there, then odds are we're not going to be very successful.
And Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
And through you, Mr. Chair, this is a long-term vision, right? So this is not something that will happen overnight. It won't happen in a year or two. It might be 5 years till we really start to see this shape up. But if we, as John or Jackson said, if we do it, we plan it, and we do it, we build it right with everybody on board, it certainly will help. It certainly will lend itself to a lot brighter future in the region. So I just wanted to say that's it.
Yes, I agree. Great.
Just,
Yes, Marty?
this may be off the wall because things cost a lot of money to build, like John said. And it may be us looking at, because this could be a tourism generator for the province of New Brunswick or whatnot, is maybe access to actually use the motorized vehicles, because most people that are doing them on a tourist per se group, maybe they can use the Burton Bridge. There's a person, you know, go through the government saying, using that scenario, that, you know, these things, the vehicles they have can pick up some speed, so they can actually access that and then go back on the trail. Because if you tell the province, instead of building the bridge across the St. John River, to let them use the bridge. I don't know, that's just a scenario off the wall, but I put a four-wheeler or four-person ATV going across the Burton Bridge. Ain't gonna hurt it. So, you know, and I'm not gonna run over one if one's in front of me, and I travel across that bridge a lot. So that whole aspect, you allow bikes to go across it. So that's just, put the plan in place.
Good point, Marty. Thanks.
So, Mr. Chair, I should have asked if we could, I should have put other on there, but I didn't, and I failed to do that yesterday with economic expansion, but I'll throw this at the committee, if you, with your indulgence, sir. Just, with regret, with respect to, meeting, July and August. The suggestion would be to, not meet July and August unless needed. And when we get the information, we'll reconvene with the committee at that time. I don't know if that's something that that someone would like to, if you, Mr. Chair, would entertain that, through you to the committee, but normally we have a hard time getting people around the table in the summer, for the meetings, so.
And the board meetings are shut down for the summer.
Yes, we have.
Does everyone agree to that? Just cease
I'm
the
good.
committee for July and August?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Consensus on that.
consensus.
Okay.
So we've pretty much covered the budget, general discussion and direction to staff. I'll open it up here. I don't know how much general discussion there is left, but least direction to staff.
Well, I have one maybe in what I just said, send a letter off to public safety. That big question.
Yeah.
I mean, start the process and see where it runs.
Just a comment there. I know Quad New Brunswick last week when we met with them about this Gagetown bylaw, I think they said like public safety was behind like, I don't know, like 280 some applicants to try to get permission to use some of the roadways to get from point A to point B. So it doesn't sound like they're, anyway, they have work to do, I guess.
Yeah, but we have also access to the minister to minister, so I think, like,
Let-
I'm just saying, we have the political might to do something versus me as person, Joe Public, writing a letter that gets put on the sideline. So I just think that way.
Okay, so that's achievable.
We'll put that into the mix, Mr. Chair, in terms of that, looking where that fits and come back with a plan for the committee to review.
Okay. Okay, any other comments, questions, discussion on anything?
Mr. Chair, if I may, it will be our intent to, in the fall, to look at how do we vision that? How do we make it happen? How do we plan it? To John's point, how do we move this forward in a systematic, to Grant's point, cohesive way to make things happen and to build that interest and generate the interest in it. And we'll explore every partner. I don't think it's any secret that I have no shame in knocking on a door and asking for a buck, and I don't care if it's the Pope or the devil. So anyway, I just want to make
Careful taking the devil's money.
Yeah, well, you never know. The devil, right? So anyway, but
Yeah,
yeah, sorry, go ahead, Director Sher.
I think just, I think we need to identify what are the holdups. And then we can work, if we can identify the holdups, then we can say, here's what we need to work on, or here's who we need to speak with.
True. Yeah, any other comments? If not, we'll.
Just, Mr. Chair, maybe, worthwhile for the committee to consider at some point, actually doing a little tour of a few of the trails, because we, right close by, we have some, what I believe are very close to world-class, trails, connecting Fredericton, or Muckdow, heading up through along the Keswick River, up through Burt's Corner, Zealand, like that stuff is, in my opinion, very close to being world class. And, maybe, I don't know if it would be beneficial for all of us to sort of see how close it could be. And it's just an opportunity. Maybe we get out and take a peek at some of this territory, and it might, facilitate us making some decisions.
It's an awesome trail. I was on that world-class trail Sunday, my wife and I.
Yeah,
It was a
and
great-
that's a perfect example of, you know, motorized, non-motorized, coexisting. It's beautiful. It could benefit maybe, you know, a bit of consistent surfacing. Like someone mentioned, signage, you know, that's always a challenge, but, you know, regionally having some sort of, some standard of signage so people do understand that, hey, yes, I am on the right trail, I'm heading in the right direction and so forth, because it, you know, as you know, Mr. Chair, you know, you can get out there and you can sort of start, if you don't know the countryside, you can start, it's easy to start second guessing whether or not this is where I should be.
Absolutely.
But it's just wonderful. It's wonderful. Like, you know, we are blessed, and I think we can probably make a lot of connections between those great pieces without a whole lot of hardship.
Sometimes I don't think we realize how well blessed we are in this end of the country. We really are. Yeah, Director Sharp.
I've got a couple of side by sides. I'll take the one with the air conditioning and somebody else can have the one without.
Mr. Chair, if I may, if we put Kelly on this, I know we're kind of going down a little spiral towards the end here, but we'll all have to work to catch up with her. So I'll just say that.
Okay. If nothing else, could we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll move.
Moved by Marty, seconder,
Seconded.
seconded by Clinton. All those in favor?
All right.
Motion carried. Thank you. Take care and have a great
Later.
summer.
Have a great
Have a good
summer,
summer.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also.
Bye-bye.